Do you know how it feels when you put your feet on that freshly grown spring grass and you can feel the warmth of the sun as it's warmed up the earth and the grass that you're standing on? Or when you get to the beach for the first time, it's the start of the season and your toes expand down into the sand and you can feel the joy. Perhaps you can identify with that first compliment you receive in a long time, and you feel acceptance inside and value for what you're doing. You feel that you've been seen and you've been heard. These are examples of where thriving is occurring and how we can sense it and enjoy it. One is when we allow ourselves time to connect to nature, and the other is the experience of being connected with others in a positive and empowering way. Our guest today, Monika Becker, has credentials as an engineer in horticulture. And what she's done is she's taken her expertise in this and she's turned it into a huge asset for the coaching industry. This has taken her into a natural, informal part of her personal life where she was doing these kinds of things as a younger person, and now she's doing it as a full profession. I feel blessed to have been introduced to Monika because her view of the world comes through her passion for plants and thriving, and her approach is unique for her coaching because she brings a visionary and creative approach to finding the real you for your own inner landscape and nature. And this is where you are destined for your greatness. Let me share a little description that Monika uses in her coaching sessions. Back to nature, your nature. An inner journey from struggle to ease. Imagine you're holding a small seed in the palm of your hand. It contains the blueprint of a beautiful, majestic tree. Now imagine you put the seed away. You don't plant it in the ground, you don't water it, you deny it love and care, and you deny the facilitation of it to grow into a big tree and realize its true potential. And if you neglect the seed, that potential is still inside, but it remains unexpressed. Now look at the unrealized potential in you. What are you doing with it? How have you nourished it in the past, but maybe lost motivation to bring more of it to light? Are you denying it the attention that would help it reach its full capacity? And do you feel there's more inside you that would like to be expressed as a part of you? You're listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell. This is Season 2, Episode 15, Destined for Greatness with Monika Becker. Hello, Monika. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks for having me. And what a lovely introduction.
Well, we're talking nature, and we're talking coaching, and we're talking supporting people to be the best they can be. It's always a good day.
Yes, for sure. I couldn't agree more.
So before we get off and running, I always like to ask people what kind of mug they packed today. I'm going to call yours the mug of greatness. What have you What have you brought with you today?
Well, no surprise, my mug of greatness is has a little connection to nature. Not too sure if you can see, you can probably see those red berries. So those are actually, oh my God, now I'm forgetting the name, holly.
Holly berries. Mm-hmm.
Yes, holly berries. And there's just the shape of leaves, of the holly leaves in that mug as well. And this is actually a mug that I inherited from a dear friend of mine who passed away, unfortunately, 9 years ago. And I'm a lover of red, as you can probably tell. And there's like the inside of the mug is fully red, right? And I love also the beigey tone and the off-white tone. So the colors just speak to me. And this nature topic, of course, fits the topic of our conversation today.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I like it's like embossed on the outside. So when you hold on to it, you can feel the texture of the leaves. That's really
totally cool. Yes. Yeah,
really
you can.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And your shirt is cream white and your sweater is red. So I see the colors coming through.
There you go.
And I'm going to laugh as I show you what I brought, because I have a scarf on today that's a turquoise and brownish shades. It's looking orange or red on the screen.
It does actually. Yeah.
It is a brown, but it's the same color as my mug, which is funny. And so my mug is from PEI, and lovely therapeutic touch practitioners who are pottery people created this. But what they do is they take the soil from different parts of PEI and they put it into the paint. So when I drink this, I always feel like I'm holding on to a mug of PEI with the red soil. And I do have red soil here in Cape Breton Island, but PEI is a special thing too. For those who are listening from outside Canada, the red soil of PEI is very famous. And inside I have Symphony of the Earth, which is a tea blend from the Tea with Intention series. And I just wanted it to kind of bring us into that same fold. What did you put on the inside of your mug? You didn't.
I have a tea called Lemon with Nana Mint. So that's what it's called. Vysotsky, that's the tea. I'm not too sure if you know it.
I don't know it. No.
And it has mint leaves, rosehip, orange peels, natural spearmint, and lemon flavors. Then citric acid, lemon peels, and hibiscus.
Those are
and
all
I'm a lover
of
pepper, of minty things, and the combination with lemon and a little bit of honey in it just makes a beautiful mix of texture and flavors.
Mm-hmm. And I love to bring tea in because my hope is, as people take the time to listen to a podcast, that they're not rushing. Like I know sometimes they'll download it to listen to it in the car, but I'm hoping that they have a mug of their special beverage and that they also take the time to sip away, listen, enjoy, relax, and not be in a hurry to learn something specifically, with a destination, but to just enjoy the conversation. So, so cheers to those people who are listening. Cheers. And Monika,
exactly.
Slange, as we would say here in Cape Breton. Thanks for joining me.
Cheers, or Prost, as we would say in Germany, my home country.
Lovely, isn't it? Okay, so let's start with your background in horticulture, because this makes your approach very unique in the way that you do coaching. And I want to know, kind of how you got started and where your interests are.
Yeah, so I basically grew up in a big, beautiful family home with a huge garden. So nature was part of my upbringing, and it was a little like a paradise for a child. And when it came to determining what I wanted to do with my life once that I had graduated from high school, I first started to become on the track of becoming an occupational therapist, but that didn't work out for a few reasons. And then the practical me inside of me told me, why not go into horticulture? I loved plants, I was used to gardening, and I thought, okay, once that I had my family, I can use my knowledge in my personal, my vegetable garden and in my own garden that I was thinking of having at the time. And I felt that the horticultural studies would be a good direction for me, because I was pretty good with natural sciences, and I had that kind of like foundation of having grown up in nature that made me feel connected to it. So that's how I went into horticultural studies, and then I specified more into the tree and fruit tree aspect of it. And eventually I started working in sales and marketing of plants, but I always kept that love going, actually, for getting my hands dirty and helping plants grow and keeping them beautiful and pretty. Like that was just always a hobby, and at times I also worked and was paid for maintaining other people's gardens. So it turned out to be a good choice in that way, right? That I was able to combine my natural abilities and skills and with something that was close to my heart.
Mm-hmm. And so now, with you doing coaching in the wellness industry, how has that influence of the horticulture come around into the coaching?
Yeah, so there are quite a few analogies, and I like to use analogies and metaphors from the natural world in my coaching, just to paint a picture that people can relate to. They can look at it from the outside and then apply whatever resonates with them to their own life. So, for example, when I was talking about helping maintain gardens and keeping them beautiful, that oftentimes included pruning some plants, which in many cases, especially also with the fruit tree culture, it's to prune off, to remove some parts that no longer serve. And that has the analogy to coaching clients. So which parts of your life, which parts of your activities, possibly even which people, which relationships no longer serve you, right? So what would enhance your life experience if you were to remove them or maybe reduce them? Because oftentimes it's just that you prune twigs back. You don't really cut them off at the point where they come out of the trunk, but you cut them back by a third or whatever the length might be, right? But maybe reducing some aspects of our lives that no longer serve us. So that is one thing. Then another example would be planting seeds. Right? I guess you as a business owner can relate that oftentimes we have so many new ideas, right? Or new initiatives and new activities that we take, which is like planting seeds. And then going back to the part that you read about my back to nature, back to your nature, when we don't nourish those seeds, they will not necessarily grow, right? So, and that, taking that back to our life or my client's life is then, so which seeds really would be helpful for you to grow and to nourish, and which ones are not necessarily helpful or beneficial for you maybe at this time. So which seed maybe you do want to put away for now so that you can take it when the timing is better or more appropriate for it, and then bring it to life at that time. Right? So those are a couple of practical applications where I bring the natural world and some metaphors of nature into my coaching to apply some concepts and tools or approaches that essentially help my clients to move forward into the direction that they would like to go, and then to achieve more of their and reveal more of their greatness in the process.
It's really interesting as you're describing all that, because it's something tangible. Sometimes you can have a conversation. It's not that it's an abstract concept trying to get someone to realize kind of where they are and where they'd like to be. Mm-hmm. But to be able to have those examples like that where you can actually bring it in and attach things to it. So even if you go out in the garden and you are just putting your hands into the dirt, you have that opportunity to start to reflect on the things that you've said. And then now what does that mean for me while I'm digging in this dirt, and where can I take this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and oftentimes, and maybe that's something that you do too with your people with regards to movement, right? I encourage my clients too to take a leisurely walk in nature without any expectation, maybe with a question that they ponder and they put out, and then just be curious to see what they notice, right? Because oftentimes nature provides us with answers that we couldn't have come up had we sat at our desk and really forced to think up a solution, right? But then when we just relax and go into nature, and then it might just provide us with a great insight or an idea when we least expect it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was just thinking about, I have a machine that hooks up to plants so that the plants can sing through a synthesizer. And I was listening to a recording someone had done about the emotions of the plants and the conversation that goes on between them. And I think sometimes when we go out and stand in the garden, we're not thinking about how we've stepped into a conversation. Right. And we're not really a part of that conversation. And we come in with our ideas. This needs to be cleaned up, and I need to work this in the garden, and I'm going to change these plants. We haven't even sat really to think about what is the garden saying and what is it doing before we've arrived. And then what is the impact that we have while we're there? It was just a really interesting reflection. So if I take from that same idea and just thinking about some of the clients that you worked with, do you have some stories of some different ways that people have had some realizations through the techniques that you use?
Yeah, so basically and I have to say that I haven't really always used nature as my, like, to offer me metaphors, right? So I'm not too sure that I have a very concrete example right now that relates to the nature aspect that I'm applying to my business more so right now. But let me just think for a moment. I just know of one person actually that explained to me that whenever she went for, similar to what I just said, whenever she went for walks and she had some trouble with clearing her thoughts and finding answers to the questions that were burning inside of her, and she kind of like stepped into her walk with no expectations, that she actually did get these hits right from nature, and that there were lots of good ideas coming to her just through her openness that she brought to that encounter with the forest, right? So there was definitely that reassurance of how nature can really support us, and as long as we're open and putting our mind clutter away for the time being, right? That's for sure, right? But another thing, which is kind of like, maybe as I'm speaking it out loud, it now comes to me, which is maybe one step removed, but still very much relating to the concept of nature, is that in order to help my clients to reconnect to their nature and their true nature, we go through, but like with most of my clients, I go through the process of helping them identify their core values in their life, because that is kind of like a blueprint that we bring with us. And it's not to say that it stays the way it is, like of our life. I think our core values do change over time, right? There is some changes there. However, for that particular time in her life, my client was actually really open to looking at what mattered to her most at that point in her life, where she was struggling in different areas of her life. And so we worked maybe I think it was maximum 2 sessions. We worked on clarifying her values and defining some concrete action steps for her that gave her some direction of what her behaviors actually would look like if she was to live in alignment with those core values that she had identified for herself. And then what was really miraculous is that she took those values into some conversations at her workplace, where she had some of those struggles that she had come to me with. And she was able to turn her experiences around just by following those action steps that she had defined, that were now in alignment with the clarity of her core values and what mattered to her. So in short, for her to identify more what mattered to her, what really was an expression of her truth, of her nature, helped her to show up differently in her interactions, and then establish a new way, a new relationship, and new experience and new results for herself. Right? And to the day, it blows me away that she did that just after the 2 sessions that we had, that she had that courage to act on it immediately and move into doing life differently based on that. And she had immediate results, right? And that was just spectacular.
That is fascinating, because you think of how many people have a job where they do have trouble communicating with their coworkers or being in alignment with the same ideas or objectives of a project. And they wouldn't know how to deal with that, and they wouldn't know why they wouldn't know how to deal with it either. And you can have that coaching of how to get along with people, but it's not about that if you don't understand where that base piece is.
Yes, exactly. And then as you probably realize from your own life, like once that you show up differently in one part of your life, it automatically affects others, right? There's that ripple effect that goes into other relationships, other areas of our life. Right? And that was the same with her. Like her relationship with her family changed, her relationship with herself changed. And that's the most important part for me, right? That people just get in touch with who they are and into greater acceptance of who they truly are, and be at peace with that.
Yeah, that's just it's so empowering. And when you think about
Totally.
how people want to be empowered and aren't sure how to get there, to know, well, it was already deep inside you. You just had to find it. Got lost in
Or
the clutter
refind it.
somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And then how that can be so simple a transition, and then so much can happen as a result.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's oftentimes, and just to offer you maybe also one little tweak that I would like to make is that, yes, people want to be empowered. And part of the work that I do with my clients is actually to help them realize that they need to empower themselves. I cannot possibly empower another person. I can offer them perspective, I can offer them tools, I can offer them support, but in the end, they need to step into their own power. Right? So it's not something that I give them, but I help them to realize it for themselves, that they have it inside of them.
So in your program, you have 5 metaphors that you like to work with. Do you want to explore a little bit about what you are doing with your program?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I have the metaphor of a bee is a bee is a bee, which means that it's an invitation to accept our unique nature and role that we're here for on Earth, right? And it speaks very much to what we touched on already, which is to explore inside of what really matters to us, like what makes us unique, what is true for us, what do we not accept, but what is it that we invite into our life, to really gain that clarity of a clear sense of self, which provides us with a solid foundation to live our life and feel okay with it, and not just okay, but be happy with it, right? Rather than struggling to be something that we think we have to be, or somebody we think we have to be, based on external expectations, right? And judgments and fears that we all carry to some degree, right? But to really get to that core of where those fears and judgments and expectations don't exist, but where we just know with every cell of the body who we are, right? And what is true for us. So that's the metaphor of being a bee and a bee and a bee. If that makes sense. And then another one is I like to use the metaphor of butterflies when they transform, like the transformation that they go through from being a caterpillar to being a beautiful butterfly. It's that we need to understand that our growth and transformation is necessary if we want to grow into something more beautiful or more meaningful to ourselves. And that growth and transformation may not always be comfortable, right? But it's just part of the process. We cannot avoid it. If we want to stretch ourselves and experience that transformation and that beautiful being that we truly are, then we need to be open to doing the work, right? That is necessary, and that to put ourselves into this uncomfortable zone, right, of stretching and outside of our comfort zone to reach that new level of greatness. Okay, so the third metaphor that I'm oftentimes using is the strength of a tree, as it relates to weathering our personal storms with flexibility and resilience. And what I mean by that is when you look at a tree, and there are certain trees that are not as adapt to storms, right? But lots of trees are. and they have an amazing resilience and ability to just sway in the storms, right? And even if the winds ruffle all their crowns and leaves, they still stand there, and they maintain their integrity, because also they are so well rooted in who they are as a tree. They're connected, they're getting support from the earth, from their natural environment. And they have just learned to go with the punches, right? Like whatever life throws at them, they are able to adapt their behavior, and their internal flexibility is just so great that they don't break. Like when life throws something heavy at them. And that again also then refers to building that kind of resilience in my clients and helping them to get to a state where they feel more able and strengthened in themselves and rooted in their true nature, so that they know better how to weather the storms and how to respond to all the things that life may throw at them.
It's beautiful. Well, I was just thinking, we had the hurricane here, which actually took the trees and like just knocked the roots, everything. It was truly amazing. But when you think about how you set down those roots and how you let those roots grow and spread out and be nourished and have all those components in there, instead of trying to do it all yourself, and you're that tree standing there, but you don't have very much root going on. It is easy for, as much as you can be resilient on the top, how easy it could be to have something come through that could really just knock you over.
And that's what sometimes happens in life, right? There's a life event that just knocks us over, right? Pulls the rug from underneath our feet, so to speak. Right. So, and that's not to say that sometimes that's because those trees that fall over are obviously also part of nature, right? But it's that part that shows us that, yes, sometimes there are life events that are hard to come to peace with, right? Or hard to grasp and hard to deal with, of course. And they just make us tip over, right? But then it's the matter, like the question, okay, so can we get back up? Because sometimes even if plants have been uprooted, you're able to put them back in and stabilize them again, right? And they can continue to grow quite well, right? It's just a matter of, okay, do we have that strength in us to then still keep going if there was something that threw us over, tipped us over.
You said something interesting, because yes, you can put the plant back in, you put the dirt on top, you're really nourishing it, right? And you're saying, hey, I see you, I value you, I love you. And then that plant usually responds with something brighter, bigger.
Exactly. And then you offer it physical support as well, right? Like oftentimes you stake the tree. When you plant a new tree in its new position at an avenue, for example, you stake them, you give them physical support. So we human beings, we also need physical support. Maybe we need friends around us, we need community, we need a hug, right? So we also need that, but we have the ability to keep going if we are grounded enough in who we truly are, and we redevelop and don't lose that connection to that essential energy in us that keeps us going, that keeps us reconnected to our truth and our true nature.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so there's 2 left. The fourth one that I use is nature is never in a rush. So there's also a rhythm for you, and there's a timing for you. And that's, for many people, is a difficult one, right? To be patient. And sometimes I'm guilty of that too. And I've learned over the years to, just to allow life to do its thing, and to trust that there is a perfect timing for everything, and that I cannot necessarily force or push things in a way so that it works out in the way that I had imagined the timing to be, right? And that's something I need to, also talk to my clients about, right? That just to allow for things to fall into place, and also to listen back in, and for them to really honor what's good and right for them, Right, an example is, for example, as you know, we talked about it today. I'm just going to use myself as an example, right? That I'm developing some new programs, and the timing that I had thought I needed to push through it in order to make them, like to publish them and promote them. It just got me into a state of confusion and pressure and feeling down and weighed down, and it was just too much until I reconnected with, so what's really true and right for me? And then I realized, you know what, I just need a few more weeks. And that opened up a whole, like the lid was taken off, and I felt strong again and creative and uplifted. So it's really that lesson, like we need to honor what's good and right for us, and that will show us also the way to our perfect timing. But we need to allow for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the last one is, you can look at it from two angles, and I'm going to use the one side of the coin, like a predator, learn to go with the flow. Right, so a predator is there to chase their prey, and sometimes they may be successful, and sometimes they may not. Right, which means that sometimes things go well, and sometimes they do not. Right, so then we adjust. It's similar to the tree developing flexibility. It's going with the flow, being okay if something doesn't go well. Maybe there's something to learn. Right, maybe the predator learns to be even quieter, or maybe they learn to hunt together, whatever the lesson may be, right? Mm-hmm. But it's the realization that we cannot force things. Sometimes things go well, sometimes they don't. So then brush ourselves off and do the best we can to create or promote another opportunity, and then be hopefully better prepared. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's an invitation to go with the flow, and not to push too hard, because or not to blame ourselves either. Right? That's another thing. Yeah. Right? That, oh my God, like here we go, like I did it again, it didn't work out again, like who am I? Like when will I finally learn it? I'll never learn it, whatever it may be. Right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's just slowing us down, those pieces.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and all of those metaphors and the lessons learned from nature, then in the program itself, it looks like lots of exercises that we do to establish and explore and identify what makes, like, my clients unique, where they do the work and I support them, right? So that they can develop that flexibility, that clarity of who they are, and the ability to adapt to life, right? So that's how those lessons from nature help us then to establish our path for ourselves that feels good and right and true to us.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I love your perspective, Monika. I love just where it takes me in my imagination, as I'm thinking about, nice. How does that impact me and what it is, I'm working through too. And so you really bring about a different perspective and a way that really allows for connection to happen.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So how can people find you and get connected with your programming?
Yeah, thank you. So my current website my website is called cleardirections.ca. So that's clear directions, all in one word, .ca. And my new program is not quite up yet, so that's how new it is. But it will be up there soon. And if you want to get in touch with me, just go to the contact tab that is up top and then on the horizontal navigation bar, and send me a little note, right? Or you can also find me on LinkedIn, where you find me under my name, Monika Becker, with Clear Directions Coaching. And just so you know, I offer every person a free consultation, or a clarity session, I oftentimes call it. And you will find the link to that on my website as well. And that is the URL, if you wanted to note it, is cleardirections.ca again, and then the /clarity.
Beautiful.
So those are a few ways to connect with me.
Excellent. Excellent. So to finish off today, I always like to finish with some kind of a movement pattern that people can take away, or just to be reminded to make sure they're moving every day. What would you offer today?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, I'll take an example that comes again from nature, but this time it's not plants, but another category of a group of natural beings that I adore, which is cats. And I have a cat myself, and I always get reminded by her how important it is to stretch. Whenever she gets up, there's always like that stretch of the front legs, and then she goes to the hind legs, and it's just that reminder, and I don't do it often enough. So for me, even the reminder would be, and the invitation for our audience, remember to stretch in the morning before, as you get out of bed, or before you sit down at your desk, and throughout the day. Just get up and stretch your body, and just stretch into the different, like, not the hunching over, but stretch your chest so that you feel like there's some movement again, and we're not just sitting like stiff people at the desk. So my invitation would be to stretch.
Oh, beautiful. I was just thinking, as you were saying that, first thing in the morning, one of the delightful things is to do that first initial stretch, but the fascia inside the body gets like a fuzz on it. And so the stiffness that we experience first thing in the morning is that little bit of fuzz. So when you start moving, it gets all of the tissue opening and the fluids moving, and that disappears.
Oh,
and
I didn't know that's
yeah, and I had forgotten about it till you just mentioned that. And so I was thinking about, just that fact that if you just take that time, it's almost like clearing the fog, right? You do that little bit of stretching, give it some space, and then potential is there. You have that opportunity.
There you go. Yes.
And then I'll take from that, I'll segue into the sounds of nature and those kind of drum beats, back beats, anything that gets a nice deep sound for you. I invite people to maybe choose a piece of music that really has you kind of feeling the earth. And then what you can do with that is just make gentle circles with the joints. And when we do that, we have the opportunity to create a little bit of space. And that space is where we find ideas, intuition, possibility. So sometimes just to stand and just create space in the body is enough for us to be able to open up. And that's something that I've done a lot more, probably the last 6 months. And every time I do that with my students, I always get this excited kind of nature when they walk out of the class at the end. They're like, oh, that just felt so good. And it was really, really simple, very basic. So
I actually want to do this now after our call. It felt like really just listening to it. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Let me get in there where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Monika, for spending the time and sharing more with our audience about how they can be well and ways that they can think about it. And I wish you the best of luck with your programming as it expands and grows and meets its audience and makes a difference in the world. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I sure appreciate the opportunity to share it with you and your audience, and just, to give a few tips and perspectives. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell. This episode is sponsored by Dance Debut, Inc., providing movement programs to create a flourishing lifestyle while achieving your goals and ambitions and enjoying the activities that may be on your bucket list. In the words of Charles Schulz from the Peanuts cartoon, to dance is to live is to dance. And we have so many ways to flourish and to savor our days when we remember to dance through it, even if it happens to be in the brain. If you're a desk-bound person spending lots of time at your computer, consider one of my programs, which includes Intention, Balancing Business. And you can learn more about that at dancedebut.com. And this has also been sponsored by the Cape Breton Tea Company, bringing a little of our countryside and hospitality into your day with a luxurious cup of the tastes and sounds of Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, as well as the specialty blends which I highlighted today, which is Tea with Intention, bringing forward the unique qualities of the herbs to support your day. Wishing you the best. Make sure you're dancing.